Brazil national team. That has been confirmed, and he will not be part of the Brazil national team. That's Rodrigo for you. But big clubs are already talking about his services as well, talking about Rodrigo. But we shall be looking that into nitty-gritty because the English Premier League is coming back with the tantalizing games, and we shall be looking that into nitty-gritty. So of course, let's first pick it from home here, and we talk about the Arua Super 8, which is taking center seat at the border at Pandoro Stadium, the home to the football club. And of course, the Super 8 is actually an annual tournament organized by the district or the DFA of Arua in the city, that teams are prepared in their competitive games. Of course, these teams will be playing in the regional league, others will be playing in the 4th division league, and the FA or the DFA of Arua thought it very well that they needed to shape their teams ahead of the forthcoming active engagements in the regional league and in the provincial league. Of course, these teams will be playing their trade. Let's look at the teams that have qualified for the Super 8 in Arua district or is in Arua DFA. Of course, these two we have been grouped into two groups. Of course, in Group A, we did have teams like Kuluva Rainbow of Vision United, Moni Soccer Club, and then one of the teams that joined them was Moni University. That actually came through as what we call a Katin Reza. So their main ambition of coming into this competition was to see that they are kind of prepared, ready for their university game. That's also kicking off very soon. That is the reason as to why Moni University had to register into this tournament. Of course, Moni being an institution, or is an entity. That's one of the biggest things that they have done. Of course, we've seen so many big institutions here within actually Arua. Of course, they can be in a position to as well register in some of these actual tournaments. It's time there's the Arua Super 8. Those were the teams in Group A. Of course, in Group B, we have teams like Odramata Football Club. We have teams like Lia City Football Club. Those are teams in the other group. In there, of course, a team in the names of Odramata Football Club had to pull away due to issues that they cited about players not being fit and the team not being so ready to host this game. Of course, it's now Odramata Football Club. There's Lia Football Club, and then Arua Airfield. Those are the teams in that regard. In there, of course, Odramata could pull it off. That says that now have got 3 teams in that group. Of course, it's now a team in the names of Arua Airfield, a team in the names of Lia Football Club, and then the other team in there. Of course, these teams will be playing in what we call in the Arua City actual games in there. Of course, this is one of the biggest games that is normally organized, and it has got a sponsor. Of course, there's a sponsor who is willing to buy for them profit. And I'm told these 2 teams, these all 8 teams registered at a fee of around 150 Ghana shillings in there. Of course, that is one of the biggest. I was talking to Diego, one of the insiders. He is the CEO of the DFA of Arua. He was actually telling me a lot of progress into this competition. Of course, if things are going on smoothly, and the final will be played on the 6th of September. Of course, it was started that the final was going to be played on the 7th of September, but it has now been pushed back to the 6th of September because Western Province will be playing against a team in the names of Bogit Province down in Boma Grounds in Yumbe. That is the reason as to why the final has been pushed up to the 6th. Of course, every Westerner needed to rally behind the Western Province in there to see that the fans are given that actual morale for the for the boys to see that they kind of win that game against the Bogiso. The game will be on the 7th of September at Boma Grounds down in Yumbe. One of the biggest games that I thought is to be watched, and everyone who is following the TV, I can tell you that you have to rally behind this team, and we need to support these teams. Of course, the Super 8 has been won last season by Kuluva Rainbow, and we're not going to see whether Kuluva Rainbow will be in position to win actually this it again. Of course, in their first game yesterday, it was a derby between Kuluva Rainbow up against a team in the names of Vision, but Kuluva managed to beat a team in the names of Vision United by a goal to nil in there. Kuluva Rainbow is a team that we really need to give an eye. Of course, we didn't see their performance against KCCA in the Uganda Cup. That was one of the best performances that I've watched from a team in the names of Kuluva Rainbow. I think Kuluva Rainbow will be a team that will be craving for this, and it will be good if they can be able to defend this. Of course, winning it, and they also needed to fight hard to see that you defend this, and if you don't defend this, it's not going to be one of the biggest actual problems for you. Of course, it's like you're not being the giant team in the Super 8, so you have to defend this. And teams like Arua Airfield that are preparing so much for these games, teams like Arua City, teams like Ovishone, but I think this is where the bragging rights will be winning. But I'm quite sure teams like Moni University will be having hard times to give for teams like Kuluva Rainbow, teams like Arua Airfield. So expect Kuluva Rainbow, Arua Airfield, then Lia, not forgetting Arua Airfield. This is my team that I thought looked to be favorites into this tournament, and we shall be clearly following what will be transpired in that. Let's first talk about FUFA a little bit. Of course, FUFA, through its licensing committee, came up to Arua, came up to Nebi to supervise, and with the latest that we're getting, they supervise teams that will be playing their trade in what we call the big league. Now, look at the team that actually will be representing us in the big league here in West Nile. We have got a team in the names of Ontopraga Football Club. We have got a team in the names of the Black Angels. As well, we do have got a team in the names of Navy Central Football Club. They made in season in the big league. But talking about that, the licensing committee of the FIFA delegates that actually came here also went to other regions. In regard to that, they kind of approved for teams that really went past or had got what you call the qualifications for a team to play in the big league. Of course, these 14 teams had got players into the system. Around 10 players were added into the system. It is mandatory that you have to have around 10 players into your system, see that you are capable of playing in the regional league or in the big league. Then again, you're supposed to have what we call things to do with stadiums, things to do with financial issue, financial reports. You need to have these things on your table. Are you paying your coaches? Are you paying your players? Do you have the technical team who are qualified? Those were the criteria that FIFA was looking into, and our teams here in West Nile, they kind of changed those criteria. I'm talking about the Black Angels on the Black Football Club and a team the names of Navy Central Football Club. That's one step forward that the teams have taken, and we're so glad about that. But now the challenge comes in here when it comes to about stadium licensing. That is where the biggest problem comes in. Of course, stadiums like Green Stadium, matches the delegates came here, they approved, the committee came here, they approved. But it has been reported that Green Stadium has not been approved yet. Barakoro Stadium, for a team in the names of the Black Angels, is not yet approved yet. Rio Grounds, for a team in the names of Nebisend Football Club, is not yet approved yet. That clearly says that the stadium management has not been fully actually approved by FIFA. It has never been fully worked on. What should our clubs here do? But I think FIFA gave these clubs a lot of time to see that they kind of prepare themselves, to see that issue to do with the stadium management. For it has been mandatory that the stadium has to look very green. Of course, we did see Medigo Calvary being the first culprit being affected in that regard, but we are seeing a couple of improvements at Medigo. Of course, that clearly says that it's being reported that the Calvary may likely play the games at Medigo. Of course, the ground looked to be very green, according to the actual information I got, and it's like the team is capable of playing the games at Medigo. That's what I can actually tell you in that regard. But first things first, let's first look at the teams that were approved, the 14 teams that were capable of playing in the big league. That have got players already into the system, that have got the mandatory settings that FIFA needed. Teams that have qualified in that regard are Tunka Saze. They have got the mandatory test that they passed it. Then there's a team in the names of Blast Power. They have got that actually right in there with them. Kataka Football Club has got that actually passed in there. We got Chinda boys, they passed the test. We have got Chigezi homeboys, they passed the test. On the Broken Football Club have passed the test. Then a team the names of Wakito Giants have passed the test. Or Sonotino Bright Stars have again passed the test. And then Mbale Heroes equally passed the test. Then Katida Football Club also passed the test. Then a team the names of Igaga Young United also passed the test. And then Young Elephant Academy equally passed the test. And then Navy Send Football Club passed the test. Then by the Black Angels was the other team that was kind of accredited to play games in what we call the FIFA Big League. But the teams that were not included in that 16-team log include the newly promoted team into the Big League in the names of Bunyarunguru. This team and Karo Karunji failed to submit the requirement documents to see that they are kind of granted the opportunity to play in what we call the Big League come 2025-2026 season. So it has been reported that these two teams can still appeal before the 27th of this very month. You see that they have to have got the documents submitted. They have to have players around 10 plus into the system to see that they're capable of playing in the Big League, and they are supposed to be also important to have got that technical team capable of spearheading the team in the Big League. You see, it's mandatory that you're supposed to have a CAF C or is a CAF B in that regard for coaches to spearhead your team in the Big League in there. Of course, CAF B is being mandatory to be eligible for a coach to be the head coach at the Big League level. Then CAF C is for coaches who can be in there for as assistant coaches. So teams like Bunyarunguru, then Karo Karunji failed to meet the necessary requirements in that regard. So let's first talk about the stadiums that have not been approved. Stadiums that have not been approved, but it has been assessed. Okay, mark my words well. Stadiums that have not been approved, but the FIFA licensing committee came into inspect them. On the Praga Football Club, Gulai Stadium Ababet has not been approved by FIFA yet. Matches the club has been authorized to play games in the Big League. They've never met the necessary requirements for them to host games here in Arua at Ababet Gulai Stadium. There are still one or two things remaining for them to still fulfill. The other team that has never fulfilled actually playing the games at home is the team in the name of Black Power. They played their home games at Ebenezer University Playgrounds down in Lira. It's not been approved yet. Bogolo give coffee grounds for Katida Football Club has not been approved. Iganga grounds for a team in the name of Iganga United has not been approved yet by FIFA. Then Lua grounds for Nebisen Football Club has not been approved yet. Then they have got Samathe playground for Karo Karunji has not been approved. I talked about Grenade Stadium already. Barakoro Stadium for Paida Blackheads has not been approved. Then we have got a stadium in the names of Kaya Mbura for a team in the names of Bunyarunguru has never been actually approved by FIFA in there. So all these teams have got the 24th to 30th of this very month still to apply for second inspection. In case in the second inspection, when FIFA now gives you the authority to play games at home, they can be in position to play their home games. But in the first phase, check up, these teams never met the requirement after standard to see that they host the games at what to call the home grounds in there. Let's first talk about the Gaddafi Wahab. Of course, it has been reported that the Gaffer has already switched allegiance and he'll be playing for South Sudan, and it has been reported that he is already a player of a team in the name of Chitara Football Club in the Southern Uganda Premier League. Of course, Gaddafi Wahab has got a very rich history when it comes to Ugandan football. Of course, he has played here in West Nile for a number of teams in there. You remember he has played for Doves All Stars. He played for Arua Sports Club. He played for Unpraka Football Club in there. Then He has also played for Mbarara City. He has played for a team in the names of NEC Football Club. That was where a team in the names of Chita Football Club actually got his service. Of course, at NEC Football Club, his contract got done, and the NEC had to actually release him, and he got a new home with Hoima Bayside in the names of Chitera Football Club. Remember, at Chitera Football Club, we have seen a number of top-notch players rising to the occasion. We talk about Dennis Omedis of this world. We talk about players like Judy Semugabi, who is kind of very pivotal for Uganda Prince actually in the Chan tournaments. That clearly says that he has gone to a club that has got a very big history when it comes to performance. Of course, that's Gaddafi Wahab for you. Of course, this is someone who has got that hard rap performance into the midfield. That's Gaddafi Wahab for you. Of course, he is still in that midfield setup. Whenever he is in the middle of the park, you will see the best of Gaddafi Wahab. But let's talk about the struggles that this team has been going through. That Chitera Football Club. Of course, the team has got its challenges in the StarTimes Uganda Premier League. Of course, players left them miserable. This season, of course, a number of players say that the team has not been paying them. Even coaches actually left them. The club president came actually to resign with this team of Chitera Football Club. But a player in the names of Gaddafi Wahab, with his patience, with his actual work rate, with his leadership abilities, taught it very well is that he can work with Chitera Football Club. Of course, at Arua Hill, when things were worse, we did see a player in the names of Gaddafi Wahab staying put with this team of Arua Hill Sports Club. Of course, he was the leader in that team by then. Things were not moving smoothly for Arua Hill Sports Club. But this is a guy who is very, very loyal. Gaddafi Wahab for you, he's very patient. He doesn't rush with the decisions. But I think a club in the names of Chitera Football Club has got someone of big magnitude into their books. He is someone who is capable of leading the team far. That's Gaddafi Wahab for you. He can talk to the youngsters in case things are not moving well. He is a disciplined player. He is a leader. He has got the experience, and he is a creative player in that. And when it comes to set pieces, he is good. When it comes to giving those crosses, when it comes to penalty attacks, he is good. When it comes to free kicks, he's okay. When it comes to delivering corner kicks, he is very, very good. This team has actually got someone who is exceptionally very, very good for them. This is a team that is trying to rebuild. So when you're trying to rebuild, you need to have experienced players. But I think Gaddafi Wahab will offer that one perfectly for them. Of course, the team did also announce other players in there. And one of the latest players that has been reported also to be joining the team is Toha Rashid. And the chemistry between Gaddafi Wahab and Toha Rashid has been so immense. And these players have kind of played together in these teams here, Arua and Arua Hill and on the Football Club respectively. They have got that chemistry, that relationship is already into their genes. Of course, this team of Chitera Football Club has already reinforced, or they have already added a number of players into their system already. They have added quite a number of players into their system. Of course, one being one of the biggest one is someone in the names of Murshid Juko into their books, and then they have got a player in the names of Issa Lumo into their books, and then Sadiq was already being added into the books of a team in the names of Chitera Football Club. This team looks to be good to go in the StarTimes Uganda Premier League. Before I talk about the biggest game that will be coming up today in Uganda Premier League, let's first talk in the Chan tournaments. Let's first talk about the African Cup of Nations game that will be coming up very soon. Of course, the games will kick off on the 1st of December 2025 in Morocco, and the teams that have already qualified through, and it has been confirmed. This is now the confirmed groupings. The groupings for the African Cup of Nations 2025 has already been confirmed. And like I said, the games will kick off on the 21st of December 2025, and the games will go till 18th of January 2026. That will be when the final will be played. Let's look at the teams, or the groupings. In Group A, you'll be seeing teams like Morocco. You'll be seeing teams like Mali, Zambia, and then Comoros in Group A. Then in Group B, you'll be seeing teams like Egypt, South Africa, Angola, and Zimbabwe. They are in Group B. And then in Group C, we have got teams like Nigeria, Tunisia, Uganda, and Tanzania. Two great East African countries in Group C. Nigeria, Tunisia, Uganda, then a team in the name of Tanzania. This is the biggest group, the group of death to me in there. Let's talk about teams in Group D. We have got Senegal, DR Congo, Benin, then Botswana. They are in Group D. Then in Group E, we have Algeria, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, then Sudan. This is another dangerous group that I think will be a little bit hectic in there. Then the last group is in Group F. You have got Cote d'Ivoire, you can call it Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Gabon, then Mozambique. These are the teams that are in the groupings of 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, which will be taking place down in Morocco. That is what I thought I really needed to let you know. Of course, these are some of the biggest stories making headlines in here into soccer here in Africa. And we shall be seeing whether Uganda will be important to make amends in that regard. Of course, the last time Uganda was in the African Cup of Nations was way back in Egypt in 2017, but Uganda never went that far in there. The team got actually eliminated in the group stages. I can remember very well that time it was Mohamed Saban who was given that opportunity to play for Uganda Queens. But are we going to see more Saban still playing for the national team of Uganda again in that tournament? Remains to be seen. And I'm quite sure it's going to be a very, very big challenge for Uganda Queens. That grouping is not going to be an easy one for Uganda Queens in there. But we will talk about that at a later time, or is in a different time, of course. Let's first talk about the biggest one coming up tonight at 5 p.m. East African time at the Mandela National Stadium. But before I talk about that, let's first talk about the games that actually transpired yesterday in the CHAN quarter-finals. The first game was between Kenya and Madagascar. Of course, this game ended 1-1 up to 120 minutes. Remember, 90 minutes ended 1-1 between these two teams. Then they have to go into extra times, and at extra time the game still ended 1-1. Then it has to go into penalty shootouts. Then a team in the names of Madagascar had to beat a team in the names of Kenya by 4-3 in the penalty shootouts. So it is now Madagascar who has gone through. Then in the other game, Tanzania were beaten by Morocco. Of course, Morocco has got one of the biggest histories against the East African countries. Of course, he has got that that dominant record against East African countries. No East African country has gone into beat this team more than two. Of course, it's only Kenya who beat a team in the names of Morocco only once. And East African countries have kind of struggled against a team in the names of Morocco. But Morocco did put the damage against a team in the names of Tanzania yesterday. That was one of the biggest games that everyone watched. But I think teams, always the co-hosting countries, Tanzania and Kenya, have now been eliminated from this tournament. Remember, they finished top in their groupings, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda respectively. So, the day awaits for Uganda. But let's first talk about Tanzania. When you look at the performance of Tanzania yesterday, I can tell you Tanzania played one of the beautiful games. But that experience, that pedigree of playing at a bigger level, but I think it goes to a team in the names of Morocco. Of course, they've been a team that has won this trophy for a number of years now, back to back. Remember, in 2018 they won it. Then in 2020 they defended that. They also again won it. They are the only team that has defended that. Of course, that experience was there in mind for a team in the names of Morocco. But apparently, Tanzania, in front of their fans, they disappointed their fans. They were eliminated. Kenya equally were eliminated in front of their fans. That was one of the biggest things that East Africa has missed. But we thought East Africa playing the games at home, the fans was going to be there in full support of the fans in there. Of course, these teams have been given that actual green light to play games at their actual respective homes. Kenya was playing their games at their home. Tanzania equal at home. Uganda equal playing their games at home. But let's first talk about the games that will be coming up today. Of course, the biggest one will be at 5 p.m. East African time here at Nambole. It's Uganda up against a team in the names of Senegal, who won it, and Uganda will be playing against the defending champions. This game, like I said, it will be at 5 p.m. Then at 8 p.m., you'll be seeing Sudan up against Algeria, one of the most interesting games tonight. I can't wait to see where I'll be watching these games, plus the English Premier League. I'll be having a comfortable seat at what we call Golden Courts. A very, very, very good place to watch games, and I'll be there to watch my games at Golden Coast. Of course, that is one of the biggest hotels that we do have got in Arua City in there, and Uganda will be playing in there. Of course, Uganda will have to play 90 minutes. They have to be so greatness in there. It has to be they have to be at the peak of the game, full at the 90 minutes to see that they lead to the greatness, they lead to the billion, to see that they kind of win this blockbuster game against Algeria. I mean, Senegal. Of course, Senegal are the defending champions, but I'm quite sure this is going to be a tantalizing game for Uganda Cranes. So let's first talk about Uganda Cranes. Of course, Senegal finishes finished second on the log. Of course, Uganda finished top in their groupings. That was a group where Uganda was too many bookmakers. They ruled Uganda out in that grouping there. Of course, it was South Africa, Algeria, who were thought to be the favorites in that regard. But Uganda managed to maneuver their way through. They eliminated one of the biggest countries in the continent in the name of South Africa in a historical moment at Nampole. That comeback was written into the archives, was written into the history books of Uganda. That is one of the biggest performances that Uganda has put forth in there. And it's not going to be an interesting game playing against the defending champions who has got that experience, who has got that actual level of playing top-notch games. That's Senegal for you. You're going to have to be double careful on the Senegal. What you really going to do against Senegal? Oh no, Senegal's the biggest strength is their style of play. Remember, they are kind of very unique. They're kind of very dynamic. They're very flexible when it comes to playing formation. That's Senegal for you. Ghana has to be a little bit technical playing against Senegal. Of course, playing this level of the tournament, you have to be a little bit disciplined. You have to show a little bit maturity in your mind. Mental strength, you have to be epic. You have to take advantage of your chances. Of course, motivation-wise, what do you see the government pledged in offers for these players? And it has been reported that the players have been actually citing issues of not being of their pledges not being fulfilled yet, and that is one of the biggest setbacks for Uganda Cranes. If the government can be in a position to fulfill their pledges actually in the corridors, it could be a motivation factor. This is now where the players needed to be motivated. The players have to play under no pressure. If the players will be playing under pressure, it's going to be a very big blow for them. Of course, we all know Senegal, with the experience that they have got and with the level of competition they have played into this tournaments, they'll be in this competition game in, game out. That's Senegal for you. They have got that experience. They have got no pressure to play into this tournament. Of course, it's Uganda that has got immense pressure when it comes to playing in this tournament. Of course, this is the first of its kind that Uganda reached up to the quarterfinals in the tournament. The pressure is on Uganda. Senegal doesn't have any place, I can tell you. The experience is there for them. The pedigree favors them. And the class equally favors them. But I can tell you, Uganda has got a number of big name players who are kind of being on the radars of other big name clubs already. Rikel Pande is attracting interest. You have got players like Alan Okello, they are attracting interest. Jude Semugabi, they are attracting interest. Torres is attracting interest. Patrick Kakante is attracting interest. A player in the names of Enoch Tabagala at Vipers is attracting interest from other big clubs. This is now going to be an interesting affair for Ghana Prince. But Ghana Prince playing their home games at home. But I think the support is going to be massive for them at Nampole. The crowd is going to be massive. Ghana Prince have kind of mastered the art very well. And Ghana Prince have played a number of games against Senegal in what's called the friendlies. And Senegal has got that record against Uganda. They've been beating Uganda for fun. And Uganda has kind of struggled against clubs or countries that are at the top of what you call the continent, the North African countries. Uganda has kind of struggled against them. Senegal is one of them. Algeria is one of them. Morocco is one of them. Can Uganda make history against Senegal? Their hashtag is that they are not gonna actually give it at ease for Senegal. They are going to fight until the 90 minutes or until the 120 minutes to see that they win this game at Nampole. So, can East Africa rally behind Uganda? I think yes. Of course, other co-hosting countries, Kenya, Tanzania, have all already been eliminated into this tournament. But I think now the priority is to see that these other nations have to rally behind Uganda right now. Of course, the support is into their favor. It will be good to see them rally behind Uganda just because they are going to be out. They're already out. They will not be taking part into this competition. Of course, in case Uganda wins the tournament, or in case Uganda reaches up to the finals, the proud will be for East Africa. Of course, East Africa being actually about that, or is being shared by Lake Victoria. It speaks some sense about the what we call the Pomada aspect a bit of it. Of course, that is the unity of being together. Can East Africa now come together? Kenya, Tanzania, and together, uniting together. I expect a massive crowd at Mandela National Stadium. My good friend in the names of Moritz is already at Nampole. He'll be giving me some actual information about that. At a later, we shall be connecting to him at the evening sports in there. Of course, one of the journalists that side actually in Kampala in the names of Black Ronald Katumba, who is working with one of the biggest media houses in Kampala. We shall be connected to them actually at a later time in the evening to see that they give us some lights. What is happening at Mandela National Stadium at Nambola? Of course, I'm quite sure they will be there live to broadcast for it. To see that the cover for that game live at Nambola for us, which will not be important to travel to Nambola. This is going to be one of the biggest games. I can tell you, big game to watch. But I think with what I'm seeing, with the crop of players that Uganda is having, with the level of preparation that Uganda is having, the confidence that Uganda has actually instilled into these players, I'm quite sure they are going to give Senegal hard times. Of course, we've seen Uganda doing that against South Africa. Uganda has got a very good record at Nampole. A very good record. Of course, it's going to be an interesting game between Uganda and Senegal. But if you ask me, I can tell you, Uganda has got a 70% chances of winning this game. The boys have been playing for the Birds. Matches, they started their groupings, the boys have been playing for the Birds. But maybe because it's a transfer period and they can easily be spotted outside. Of course, the clubs that have been talking about these players, even in Europe, of course, Alan Okello citing that he admired Bruno Fernandes' style of play. He fancies to play like how Bruno Fernandes played, and he is much more of a leader. He's a fighter in that team of Uganda. He is actually carrying that team of Uganda forward. it's Alan Okello into that and the Regan Pante. But I can tell you, this team of Uganda Cranes is capable of making statements. But the biggest challenge for Uganda Cranes could be in the goalkeeping setup. Of course, someone in the name of Joel Mutakuba, who plays for both football club, he is not really doing to the building. He kind of looks very shaky actually at that goal post position in there. That is going to be one of the biggest challenges for Uganda Cranes against Senegal. As a goalkeeper, you're supposed to be very confident enough at the goal post. If you're not confident enough, my friends, this is going to be another hectic challenge for us. Because we have seen people now regarding Joel Mutakuba to be the Andre Onana of Uganda Cranes. Will Modi Buekato cross him again? Will Freddy Mukuza cross him again to play for Uganda Cranes in the game against Senegal today? But I think if I'm to pick, in my own opinion, I'll pick a goalkeeper in the name of Crispas Kusime of Chitara Football Club. This guy has kind of established himself. Of course, he'll be leaving Chitara and he'll be playing for a team in the name of UR Football Club. Of course, he has kind of established himself. He is a proven goalkeeper. In that goalkeeping post, he is excellent. The reason as to why Molly Bwakaso picked actually Joel Mutakuba actually ahead of Joel a goalkeeper in the name of Crispas is just because of his actual goal distribution abilities. Of course, he is good in distributing those balls, but when it comes to commanding the defenders, playing the names of Crispas Kusime is excellent in that. And when it comes to shouting to the players, he is shouting to the players. That's Crispas Kusime for you. But Joel Mutakubwa is not all that doing actually. He's not talking to the defenders. He is not giving the backup to the defenders. Of course, he is supposed to have that secondary backup to the goal. To the defenders of Uganda. He's not doing that. Those 2 goals, all those 3 goals that Uganda considered were his errors. I can tell you that authoritatively, were his errors. If Modi Bwakaso can be in the position to pick another goalkeeper, maybe Crispas, or as a goalkeeper in the names of Dennis Chindu or Vipers, it will be of an advantage for us. Of course, playing Joel Mutakuba, it's going to be a risky thing in my own view. But all in all, mistakes are always mistakes. And if he can be in position to improve from his mistakes, he can still, if he can be in position to assemble, if he can be in position to give that secondary balance to the defenders, or if he can be in position to listen to the advice that the coach is to be given to him, he can still play. Of course, he has got that potential. He is good, yes. But I think this is now a level where everyone needed to be serious about what you're offering for the batch or what you're offering for the country. Every Ghanaian, everyone will be watching this, and the continental, even in Europe, everyone will be watching. Any slight mistake that we'll be making to be of a course thing. Of course, this level of competition needs no room for errors. Completely no room for errors. But I think if Uganda can be important to capitalize on some of those errors, it will be of any advantage for actually Uganda in there. The game will be at 5 p.m. East African time. Let's first talk about the games that were played yesterday in the English Premier League. Of course, Chelsea Football Club did put a 5-star performance against a team in the name of West Ham United in there, beating them by a very huge goal actually margin there, beating them by 5 goals to 1 in there. Of course, Chelsea Football Club putting up that excellent performance against a team in the names of West Ham United. One of the biggest performance for Chelsea Football Club was a play in the names of Stavia Williams, who made his actually first debut into this game. Of course, one of the biggest upsets for them was Cole Palmer, who kind of got actually out for Chelsea Football Club in the warm-up. Of course, he sustained he got some injury in the warm-up game against West Ham yesterday, but he is going to be a player who will be missing out for Chelsea Football Club due to hamstring injury. Expect a player in the names of Cole Palmer to be back for Chelsea Football Club after the international break. Of course, players will be going to represent their country into what we call the continental, the national engagements, and they will come back again on the September in there. So expect a player in the names of Cole Palmer to be out for City Football Club. Remember, Lucas Paqueta scored one of the beautiful goals for a team in the names of West Ham United in there. We thought this was going to be a defining moment for them in there, but it was turned to be a mere consolation for them. This goal, Lucas Paqueta scored that game after a goal in the 6 minutes, but playing the names of Yao Pedro after the arrest to the occasion, and he put Chelsea in there. Then he collided that one. Then again, Pedro Neto also scored for City Football Club. Playing the names of Enzo Fernandez also scored. Moses Caicedo, and then Chalaba added the damage on West Ham United in there. This is West Ham United's actually third, or is West Ham United's actually second defeat of the season. It has been so miserable for them so far in the Premier League. Remember, they were walloped 3-0 by newly promoted side in the names of Sunderland, and at their own stadium at London Stadium, where West Ham United played their home games. They were walloped by 5-1 by Team Chelsea Football Club. This is going to be a close one for Graham Potter. Remember, he was playing against his former paymasters, and it is going to be one of the hardest things for him, of course. 2 back-to-back. Remember, not just an ordinary losses. These are heavily attached actually a lot is in there. 3-0, then 5-1. You see, it's the statement of intent. And Arua Bissaka was the biggest culprit for them. He was not actually to the building, and of course, playing back three. He is not much used to back three, of course. That's Arua Bissaka for you, of course. He is much more into his back three. Into his back four side of play. And those first 3 goals came through Arua Bissaka. West Ham United has got still a lot to learn in there. Then in the championship games were equally played. Of course, Derby County played 1-1 with the British City. And then in the France League 1, we did see PSG beating a team in the names of Angers by a goal to nil. Then in the German Bundesliga, Harry Kane was really amazing for Bayern Munich, scoring a hat-trick against RB Leipzig, scoring 3 goals against RB Leipzig. That's Harry Kane for you. I think he is trying to enjoy himself at Bayern, and Bayern managed to beat RB Leipzig by 6-0 in there. Of course, in Spain, Real Betis did beat a team in the names of Alaves by a goal to nil. Then we did see those are the games that were played in the Spanish La Liga. Tonight, games will be coming up today in the English Premier League at 2:30 p.m. We shall be seeing a team in the names of Manchester City playing against a team in the names of Tottenham Hotspur at Etihad Stadium. Expect a player in the names of Rodri to be on the bench, or is on the pitch for Manchester City. Of course, he is back from his long-time injury for Manchester City. This is going to be a big boost for Manchester City against Tottenham Hotspur in there. I'll be talking about that game shortly in there. Of course, Bournemouth will be playing against Wolverhampton Wanderers. This game will be at 5 p.m. Brentford will be playing against Aston Villa at 5 p.m. We have to Burnley up against Sutherland and promotion affair in there. Of course, the game will be at 5 p.m. Then at 6:30 p.m. we shall be seen at Emirates Stadium. Arsenal welcoming a team in the names of Leeds United. And then tomorrow at 4 p.m. we shall be seeing Crystal Palace welcoming Nottingham Forest. Nuno Espirito Santo is really under immense pressure at City grounds. We shall be actually seeing whether he will be making amends against Crystal Palace in there. Of course, Everton will be welcoming Brighton or Hove Albion at 4 p.m. equally. Then at 6:30 p.m. Fulham at Craven Cottage will be welcoming Manchester United. Ruben Amorim inside at Manchester United. Of course, on Monday, expect the biggest to be between Newcastle United and Newcastle United against a team in the names of Liverpool at 10 p.m. East African time at St. James Park. One of the biggest games. Of course, Alexander Isak will never be in that game against Liverpool. Of course, the reports that he is much more expected to leave a team in the names of Newcastle United. Let's first talk about the game of Manchester City against Spurs a little bit. Of course, the game will be at 2:30 p.m. The first game of the English Premier League in there. Of course, it's going to be one of the biggest games to watch. And I can tell you, this is where Manchester City really need to play their best game. This is where Thomas Frank at Spurs needed to play their best game. Of course, both teams started the Premier League positively. Manchester City did beat a team in the names of Wolverhampton Wanderers that has been so much of hectic for them in the English Premier League for seasons in there. Of course, beating them by 4 goals to 0. Then on the other hand, a team in the names of Spurs did beat a team in the names of Burnley by 3 goals to 0. Of course, Mohamed Kudus, Richarlison were excellent for a team in the names of Spurs. Then for Manchester City, Tien Renders, Haaland, these players were equally amazing to watch. But this is not going to be an interesting game. Of course, Spurs reinforcing and equal a team in the names of Manchester City also reinforcing. This is going to be one of the interesting games to watch, I can tell you, in the English Premier League. And I'm quite sure it's going to be one of the biggest games to watch. And this is where we will be knowing who is who between Pep Guardiola and Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank, by the time when he was at Brentford, he was given a lot of hard times for teams in the English Premier League. But he has come at Tottenham Hotspur, a team that looked to be a little bit balanced, a team that looked to be motivated. This is now going to be one of the biggest games for them. Of course, the biggest upset for them, for Spurs, is going to be James Maddison, who is going to be out for them. Then Kulusevski as well is going to be a big miss for them in this game against Manchester City. Can Pep Guardiola capitalize on that? Of course, Spurs, to me, they're kind of mentally affected just because they thought that they were going to sign a player in the name of Brest Eze, who opted to join Arsenal Football Club. That is going to be something that I think will be of a big blow for them. Meant that the team is going to be stressed. Of course, they thought they will almost finalize the deal for Brest Eze, but he opted to join Arsenal Football Club. But a player in the name of Tien Rangers at Manchester City, that guy is amazing to watch, I can tell you. Pep Guardiola against Thomas Frank. I think Manchester City, with the experience, will have got an upper hand against the team in the names of Spurs in there. Let's talk about Arsenal up against Leeds United. Leeds United in their first game played a 1-1 draw, and Arsenal beat Manchester United by 1-0. Leeds were here in the English Premier League. They always actually love playing against big teams, and they always love giving hard times for big teams. Are we going to see Leeds United making amends in the game at Emirates Stadium against Arsenal Football Club? It's going to be a big challenge for Leeds United. But I'm quite sure Arsenal Football Club, with the record that they have been at home, and with the new signs that they are having, the team seems to be rejuvenated. And with the biggest ambition that they have kind of set for themselves to win the Premier League, that is going to be one of the first rising, or the first actual decisions that Mikel Arteta is going to be putting forth into the players of Arsenal Football Club. That strength is going to be the biggest one for them. Of course, the team, it looks to be rejuvenated. The team looks to be balanced everywhere, department to department. But I think one of the biggest talking points has to be a player in the names of Victor Joker. Again, at Manchester United, he kind of struggled, and we are going to watch him against a team in the names of Leeds United, a team that seems to be a medium team in the English Premier League. Can a player in the names of Victor Jokeres make statements always come on top of cameras, always to the media, to define odds that he is the player that Arsenal Football Club was kind of missing to see that the team wins the English Premier League? That is a statement that he really needed to put forth in a performance based for Arsenal Football Club. But I think Arsenal has kind of established themselves very solid defensively. They are going to be so good for the team in the names of Leeds United. They are going to be so solid against Leeds United. I don't expect Leeds United to score a goal against Arsenal Football Club. I'm quite sure. Of course, Arsenal has got a very good defense. That player is actually doing exceptionally well for Arsenal Football Club. But it's not going to be Mikel Arteta to see which players he summons to play for him. It's going to be an interesting game. And I'm quite sure this is going to be an amazing game to watch. But I'm looking at the Arsenal Football Club also having an upper hand against a team in the names of Leeds United. Those are my picks of the English Premier League. Let's talk about Manchester United up against Fulham at Craven Cottages, 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. Fulham and Marco Silva, they have kind of assembled a very good team, a competitive team that always loves giving headaches to big teams. And if Manchester United is not going to be serious into their game approach against Fulham, it's going to be one of the hardest things for Ruben Amorim. He started his actual game of the season, quite well against Arsenal. Matches they lost the game. You will see that they were glimpses of Manchester United playing the best of their game. They look to be coached. Everyone seems to be actually fighting for position at Old Trafford, and I'm quite sure at Fulham, if that's the performance, if that's the spirit that Manchester United is putting forth, with Fulham, they'll be having a chance of beating Fulham at Craven Cottage. But it's going to be a hard game for Manchester United at Craven Cottages. Fulham won't know. They always love giving hard time for teams in their home. And Marco Silva always love how to put their big performances against big teams. You remember, it's going to be a Portuguese coaching affair. Marco Silva comes from Portugal, and again, Ruben Amorim also comes from Portugal. You see, this is going to be a Portuguese coaching affair. Interesting. But I can tell you, Adama Traore is still into that team of Fulham in there. We still have got a former Manchester United player in the names of Andre is still into there. It's going to be one of the biggest games to watch. But with the target the Manchester United set for Ruben Amorim, with the zeal, with the love that the players, with the fighting spirit the players are putting forth, to see that the Manchester United comes back to the glory days, or the Manchester United finish in the top 4. I'm quite sure it's going to be an interesting game between these two teams. You understand? Expect a tantalizing game, but I'm quite sure United will have an upper hand against a team in the names of Fulham in the Premier League come Sunday. Let's look at the transfers a little bit before I call it a quit. Let's talk about Newcastle United a little bit. Of course, Jan Wister is the latest player that they're talking about. They want to sign Jan Wister from Brentford as a replacement for a player in the names of Alexander Isak. Of course, it has been reported yesterday that Newcastle United said Liverpool should come with a fee of around 120 million pounds to 130 million pounds for the services of Alexander Isak. But I can tell you, it's like Alexander Isak says no to Newcastle United. He's made his sides very clear that he wants to play for Liverpool Football Club. Of course, former Newcastle United and Liverpool ex in the names of Marco Owen did say that Newcastle needed to lead this guy away. Of course, this is not the time that the player has got a desire to play for another talent. He wants to try another talent. Because at Newcastle United, he will not be winning the Premier League. He will never be winning the Premier League. He will never be winning the FIFA Club World Cup, the Super Cups. You see, these kind of trophies at Newcastle United, it will be hard to win. But at the Liverpool Football Club, it's more easier. But this guy in the names of Alexander Isak has offered his actual services perfectly for them already. And he has scored a number of goals for them, and he has actually made this team to qualify for the Champions League for a number of seasons already. He has done his part for this team. He has actually played ever since he made that switch from Real Sociedad to come and play for a team in the name of Newcastle United. The guy is really living to the billion. And I can tell you, the fans are not really happy with him anymore. The fans actually banned his actual jerseys. They said that they don't want him anymore. And but I think this is not the perfect time for Newcastle United to sell this guy away. To see that they signed, or is that they get their money out of him. Of course, their price tag for him was around 150 million pounds. But if a team is willing to give him a fee of around 120 to 130 million pounds, why can't you accept this fee? This is a good money, and he will be the first record signing in the English Premier League at that amount of money. Do you want to retain this player still at your disposal? You'll be losing a lot in there. Of course, the other big players, he is a player who is giving hard times for other youngsters at Newcastle United. But I think it's high time that Newcastle United needed to give another chance for other youngsters. Go into the market, sign a striker. You can still rely on the striker. Newcastle is the big brand in the English Premier League. Manchester Liverpool is the bigger brother. Is a bigger brand than Newcastle United. But I can tell you, if this guy leaves Newcastle United, if he goes to Liverpool Football Club, it will be a good addition to that team of Liverpool Club. But I expect Liverpool Football Club to make amends in the English Premier League. I'm quite sure this guy may likely cross to Liverpool. And the Liverpool hierarchy is much more interested in his service. And they are so much into the deal. And Newcastle United wanted a number of strikers. They wanted a striker in the names of Tike. He opted to join Liverpool Football Club. They wanted Benjamin Sesko. He opted to join Manchester United. Now, what is up to Isaac? Still to play for Newcastle United. He has to try another talent, play for a bigger team. Bigger team that has got ambition. Bigger team that whereby you'll be paid expensively. Liverpool is the perfect one for someone in the names of Alexander Isak. But I think he may likely go. Of course, Newcastle board, always the coach team is already saying that it's now a lose affair. Isak is losing, Newcastle is equally losing. But Isak has got the right to sue Newcastle United Manchester. He has got 2 years contract remaining with them. Of course, if he wants to go, the club has to let him go. They have to agree. Of course, we saw how this guy was actually making a statement at Sporting CP. That's Victor Zokeres. He maneuvered his way through. He came. You understand? He is really an Arsenal player. Isak is going to behave in that manner. Expect Isak to sign for Liverpool Club before the transfer window closes. Of course, the transfer will be shutting down on the 1st of September. Expect this player to sign for Liverpool Club in there. Of course, let's first talk about Raheem Sterling. Of course, there are a number of teams that are looking for his services in the English Premier League. Crystal Palace are talking about him. Fulham are talking about him. West Ham United are talking about him. And Raheem Sterling at Chelsea Football Club, Enzo Maresca did say that he is ready to let him go. And he has to look for a club to play in. He has got a new future at Chelsea Football Club. Of course, the project seems to be real at Chelsea Football Club, based on young stars. And at that age, 31 years old, Enzo Maresca thinks he is not the player that he needs at the team of Chelsea Football Club. Of course, Chelsea has got a project. When you are already at 30 years old, you are no longer a useful player for them. It is in their books that record is there. That history is being amended, or it has been signed at Chelsea. If you're 30 plus, you are not supposed to play again and again for Team Chelsea Football Club in there. And there are clubs that already been talked about this guy. And we're not going to see where this guy will be making headlines. Of course, a number of players will be leaving Chelsea Football Club. Of course, Raheem Sterling is one of them. Nicolas Jackson is one of them. Christopher Cook is one of them. We did see Renato Viaga crossing over to Villarreal. Alex Di Stassi is also set to leave Chelsea Football Club. A number of players are set to leave Chelsea Football Club. And Chelsea Football Club has got a very good team. The team looks to be a little bit balanced. And I'm quite sure Chelsea Football Club will be having a lot to do when it comes to playing in the English Premier League. And they have got a very balanced team. That's Chelsea Football Club for you. Let's talk about Spurs a little bit. The latest we're getting indicates that the Spurs are saying that they are willing to actually offer, they actually attempt to sign, or is a bid to sign a player in the names of Savino from Manchester City. Of course, they were interested in the services of a player in the names of Brett Eder from Crystal Palace, but he disappointed them. Of course, Spurs has got injury clashes at their attacking force. Of course, James Maddison is out. You understand? The player in the names of Kulusevski is out for them. So they thought it very wise that Brett Eder was going to be a perfect one for them, but he opted to join he is actually a parent club, Arsenal Football Club. Remember, Brett Eze was at the helm of Arsenal Football Club from the junior setup. At 13 years, that was when Arsenal released him. And he is already back at Emirates Stadium. That is the club that where he fancies to play. That's the club that he had got in his DNA. He loves to play for Arsenal, and he's a childhood fan of Arsenal Football Club. He had joined them, and he's already a player for Arsenal Football Club. And it has been reported that Spurs are saying that they want to knock the door for a player in the names of Savino from Manchester City. Can Manchester City allow Savino to leave them? Remains to be seen, and I'm quite sure this is going to be one of the challenges that this guy has to put forth. Of course, according to reports, Manchester City is now looking for ways of selling this guy equally in there. Of course, they are valuing him at around 70 million pounds. £1 million in there. That's a play in the names of Savino. Can Spurs splash that money to sign this guy? But I don't expect a player in the names of Savino to leave Manchester City. Of course, he has got no heart of leaving Manchester City. Of course, Manchester City being a big brand, he is going to be a big player for them in there. Of course, let's first talk about a player in the names of Rodrigo before I talk about Rasmus Haaland's move to Napoli. Of course, Manchester City are amongst clubs that are interested in the services of Real Madrid player in the names of Rodrigo. Of course, it has been reported that Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal and Bayern Munich are all interested in the services of Rodrigo from Real Madrid. And it has been actually stated that Real Madrid are demanding for around 80 million euros, which is equivalent to 69.3 million pounds for the services of a player in the name of Rodrigo. And for Liverpool are saying that they want to sign Rodrigo as a replacement, as a direct replacement for Luis Diaz, who was brought over to Bayern Munich. And with the other displacement of Isaac and Mark Guehi coming to Anfield, Liverpool is going to spend a lot of money in the transfer money in case they sign this guy. Of course, I'm quite sure playing the names of Rodrigo cannot be important to play in that team of Liverpool Football Club. He should rather play for Manchester City or the Arsenal Football Club, whereby he'll be having that playing time regularly. Of course, Liverpool Football Club doesn't need a player of his caliber anymore. You understand? That's according to me. But that is one of the stories making headlines in there, and I'm quite sure he is going to be a big one for a team in the names of Manchester City if he comes into that team of Manchester City. Of course, Manchester City wants to let go a player in the names of Savino, and then they add a player in the names of Rodrigo. What's the difference between that? What's the difference? Both players are still very young, okay? Both players are still very young, and they can offer something very good for your team. And if Pep Guardiola wants to stay competitive, he first have to keep hold of Savino, add a player in the names of Rodrigo into your books. Your team will be balanced. Of course, they really needed to have a replacement for a player in the names of KDB or Kevin De Bruyne. There's no replacement for him. They first have to get a replacement for Kevin De Bruyne. But I think having that guy in the names of Rodrigo could be a good one. Of course, Manchester signed Ryan Cherki, but I think Ryan Cherki cannot be a direct replacement for this guy. For now, of course, Manchester City has got a number of games to play. You need to alter your team, game in, game out. And the big games that you need to have a different player. A player who will come in and define for you odds. One of them is a player in the names of Rodrigo. He can define odds. Ryan Cherki can define odds, but you need to have a balanced squad. You understand? For you to stay competitive, for players to fight for their position. That's what I'm actually anticipating. Of course, they've let go a player in the names of Jack Grealish, who has crossed over to Everton. That is a statement to make, and Manchester City needs a replacement for him. That is one of the things. Of course, Pep Guardiola did say that his team is not healthy, and expect Pep Guardiola to still reinforce. And they were talked about Donnarumma being linked to Manchester City. We're not going to see whether they can be possible to sign out to the goalkeeper. Of course, they signed James Trafford already into their books already from Burnley Football Club in there. Let's talk about Nottingham Forest. Things are not working well for them. Of course, Nuno Espirito Santo, together with the club president in the names of Elevagos, things are not really going so well. The relationship is kinda going apart. Of course, during the press conference yesterday, Nuno Espirito Santo did say that he is not happy with the club hierarchy just because they are not giving him that actual mandate in the transfer market. It is really very hard for him to sign actual players in the transfer. Of course, this is one of the biggest things that his team is facing right now. Of course, the team will be playing a number of games in the Europa League, in the Premier League, in the FA Cup, in the Carabao Cup. He thinks the squad depth is not enough. And one of his biggest players are thought to leave them. Anthony Langa has crossed over to Newcastle United already. And Gibbs White is also reportedly attracting interest from Tottenham Hotspurs. You see, this is whereby the hierarchy really needed to trust this guy, and they are probably signed for him a number of players. Imagine they've signed a number of players. You need to have experience, you need to have that squad depth. You see that you remain competitive. But it has been reported that in case the club hierarchy decide to sack him, of course, they are not actually willing with his actually, they are not good with his decision of actually revealing the club activities to the media. That's the club president. They say that anything they can sack him. Of course, if I can remember very well back that in May, Nuno Espirito Santo had clashes with the club president also in May last year. And the same trend is also happening. Are we going to see him saying put them? Of course, Team Spurs, Nottingham Forest already cited 2 coaches who can come in and replace him in case they fire him. They've already identified Jose Felix Mourinho to be a top contender to replace Nuno Espirito Santo. Then Ant Postecoglou, former Spurs coach, he said the coach that they kind of identified to see that they kind of have got that eye of playing for them. Let's first talk about Manchester United. The latest I can tell you about Manchester United is that Manchester United are set to actually assign a goalkeeper in the names of Senne Lammens from Antwerp. Of course, he has already agreed personal terms already with Manchester United already, and it's now Manchester United holding club-to-club talks with Royal Antwerp of Belgium, because this is a very good goalkeeper. He is 6 feet tall, a very tall goalkeeper, and he is a ball-playing goalkeeper, and he is good. Probably he could be a good addition for Manchester United. Of course, Manchester United is having a number of challenges when it comes to goalkeeping area. Of course, under Onana, 2 consecutive seasons, he's making the same mistakes again and again. He is not improving for Manchester United. Yet, Atil Badiri is making actually mistakes against Arsenal. It costed Manchester United. So, Manchester United is in talks with the Royal Antwerp. Expect a player in the names of Senne Lammens to join Manchester United. This deal is imminent. He'll be a player to join Manchester United, and he'll be good to go for Manchester United. Expect him to come as a player for Manchester United. That's a player in the names of Senne Lammens. He's a good goalkeeper. Matches he has never have that international cup for Belgium national team in there. He is still 23 years old. When he'll be into the team of Manchester United, he'll be a regular starter, and that's where the Belgian Federation will trust him and will be giving him that priority to come and play for the national team of Belgium. He is a top prospect, a ball-playing goalkeeper. Matches he has got challenges. His biggest challenge is just about his ball distribution. Those are some of the challenges that he is facing as a player. That's a player in the names of Senne Lammens in there, and he'll be one of the biggest players that Manchester United is going to be missing in there. My time is up. Let's cut a day. I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Let's catch up again next time.